You know that feeling when your whole world just crumbles in front of you? Like, literally crumbles into a million pieces while you're sitting there trying to keep it together? Well, that's exactly what happened to me 3 weeks ago in my parents' lawyer's office in downtown Chicago. I'm Madison, by the way, and I'm about to tell you the most insane story of betrayal, family secrets, and revenge that'll make your head spin. So picture this. There I am, sitting in this fancy law office with mahogany everything, and those intimidating leather chairs that probably cost more than my car. My parents, Richard and Eleanor Blackwood, yeah, they're as pretentious as their names sound, are sitting across from me with their lawyer, Mr. Peterson, who looks like he stepped straight out of a 1950s movie with his wire-rimmed glasses and perfectly pressed suit. My brother Jake is there too, of course. Golden boy Jake, with his perfect Harvard MBA, his perfect wife Sarah, and their perfect twin boys who my parents absolutely worship. At 32, Jake's always been the favorite, the star quarterback in high school, the business major who made Dad proud, the one who gave them grandchildren. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there at 28, single, working as a freelance graphic designer, apparently the family disappointment. The thing is, I thought I was there for Grandma's will reading. See, my grandmother Dorothy had passed away 6 months earlier, and she'd always been my rock. While my parents were busy fawning over Jake's achievements, Grandma was the one who supported my art, who believed in my dreams, who told me I was special too. She'd always hinted that she'd taken care of me in her will, giving me these little winks and saying things like, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Grandma's got your back." But as Mr. Peterson starts reading, I realize this isn't just about Grandma's will. This is about my parents' entire estate planning, and they've apparently decided to share their final wishes with us while they're still kicking. Talk about dramatic, right? As you both know, my father begins, his voice carrying that authoritative tone he uses when he's about to deliver bad news. Your mother and I have worked very hard to build our wealth. We've always believed that money should go to those who've proven themselves responsible and capable of handling it wisely. My stomach starts doing those nervous flip-flops, you know? Because when your parents start talking about responsibility and proving yourself, and you're the artsy kid who chose passion over profit, you know where this is heading. Mr. Peterson clears his throat and starts reading from the documents. To our son, Jacob Michael Blackwood, we leave our entire estate, including all properties, investments, and liquid assets, totaling approximately $9.99 million. I swear, the room went dead silent, except for the sound of my heart literally breaking. Jake's trying to look surprised, but I can see this smug little smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Sarah reaches over and squeezes his hand, like they've just won the lottery, which I guess they basically have. Then, Mr. Peterson looks directly at me, and I know what's coming. I can feel it in my bones. To our daughter, Madison Rose Blackwood, he pauses, and I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, there's something for me too. Maybe a small inheritance, or the summer house in Michigan that I've always loved, or even just Grandma's jewelry collection that means the world to me. But then my mother looks me straight in the eye, and with the coldest voice I've ever heard her use, she says, "You'll get nothing. Nothing. Not a single dollar. Not a family heirloom. Not even a freaking family photo. Nothing." The lawyer continues reading, explaining that they believe Jake has demonstrated the maturity and business acumen necessary to handle such a large inheritance, while I have consistently made poor financial decisions and chosen an unstable career path. I'm sitting there, trying not to cry, trying not to scream, trying not to just run out of that office and never look back. But you know what? I stayed. I stayed because I needed to hear every single word of their justification for basically disowning me while I'm still alive. Here's the thing that really gets me. Growing up, I was always told that family comes first, that blood is thicker than water, that no matter what, we stick together. But apparently, that only applies when you fit into their perfect little mold of success. Hey, if you're watching this story unfold, please hit that like button because this is just the beginning, and trust me, you're not going to believe what happens next. Drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. I love connecting with people from all over, and definitely follow this channel because this story has more twists than a pretzel factory, and you're going to want to see how this all plays out. Because here's the thing they didn't know. Grandma Dorothy had been keeping secrets. Big ones. And I was about to discover that sometimes the people who love you most leave you the most unexpected gifts. But first, I had to figure out how to survive the complete and total destruction of everything I thought I knew about my family. I drove around Chicago for 3 hours after that meeting, just driving with no destination, crying my eyes out and blasting Taylor Swift like the cliché heartbroken girl I apparently was. I mean, what else do you do when your own parents basically tell you you're worthless? I ended up at Millennium Park, sitting on a bench, watching tourists take selfies with the bean while my whole world fell apart. That's when I remembered Grandma's house, the little Victorian in Lincoln Park that she'd lived in for 47 years. My parents had been so busy dividing up their millions that nobody had even mentioned what was happening to Grandma's place. I figured it was probably going to Jake too. Everything else was. But I had a key. Grandma had given it to me years ago, telling me I was always welcome there, that her home was my home. So I drove over there, thinking maybe I could just sit in her living room one more time and remember what it felt like to be loved unconditionally. The house looked exactly the same. That gorgeous, deep purple paint with white trim that the neighborhood association had tried to make her change for years. Grandma Dorothy had told them where they could stick their property value concerns, and I'd always loved her for that. The woman had zero patience for people who tried to control her. I let myself in, and immediately I could smell her perfume, that white shoulders fragrance she'd worn since before I was born. It hit me like a truck, and I just collapsed on her floral couch and sobbed. I'm talking ugly crying, the kind where your face gets all splotchy and your nose runs like a faucet. After about 20 minutes of feeling sorry for myself, I noticed something weird. There was an envelope on the coffee table with my name on it, written in Grandma's shaky handwriting. How had I missed that? I could have sworn that table was empty when I came in. I opened it with trembling hands, and inside was a letter that made my jaw drop to the floor. My dearest Madison, it read, if you're reading this, then you've already been to that ridiculous will reading, and you know what your parents have decided. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I tried to talk sense into them, but your father is as stubborn as his grandfather was, and your mother, well, she's always been more concerned with appearances than with what's right. Already I'm getting chills, right? But it gets so much better. I need you to know that I never agreed with their decision. You are every bit as deserving of love and security as your brother. And frankly, you're a hell of a lot more interesting. Jake's about as exciting as watching paint dry, bless his heart. I actually laughed out loud at that part. Classic Grandma Dorothy. She could insult someone and make it sound like a compliment. Now, here's what I need you to do. Go to my bedroom, look under the loose floorboard by the window. You know, the one that creaks when you step on it. There's a metal box underneath. Bring it down here and open it. The combination is your birthday. Month, day, year. My heart was pounding like crazy as I ran upstairs. Grandma's bedroom was exactly as she'd left it. The same patchwork quilt, the same bottles of perfume on the dresser, the same stack of romance novels on the nightstand. I found the creaky floorboard and pried it up with a letter opener from her desk. Sure enough, there was a metal lockbox underneath, about the size of a shoebox. I carried it downstairs with shaking hands and punched in the combination. 04-15-1996. Click. Inside was a thick manila envelope, some old photographs, and a small velvet jewelry box. I opened the envelope first, and what I found inside made me literally gasp out loud. It was a deed to the house I was sitting in, dated just 2 months before Grandma died. The property had been transferred to Madison Rose Blackwood, that's me, for the sum of $1. But that wasn't all. There was also a bank statement showing an account I'd never heard of, in my name, with a balance of $847,000. $847,000. My grandmother had been secretly saving money for me for years, apparently. There was another note attached. This house is worth about $2.3 million in today's market, sweetie. I had it appraised last month. The money in the account is from stocks I bought in your name when you were born, plus some other investments I made over the years. I always believed you'd need it someday. And I was right. I was hyperventilating at this point. Like, literally couldn't breathe. Here I was, thinking I was broke and homeless and abandoned, and my grandmother had secretly made me a millionaire. But wait, there was more. The photographs in the box were old, some from the 1960s and 70s. Pictures of my dad as a young man, but also pictures of another man who looked exactly like him. Like, exactly. Same face, same build, same everything. And then I found the birth certificate, not my dad's, his twin brother's. A twin brother I'd never heard of, never seen, never knew existed. His name was Robert Blackwood, and according to the documentation in that box, He'd been cut out of the family fortune 50 years ago for moral failings and poor judgment. Sound familiar? The last thing in the box was a letter addressed to Robert, postmarked just 6 months ago. It had been returned to sender, address unknown. But the return address made my blood run cold. It was from a law firm in Seattle. The subject line read, Blackwood Industries Class Action Settlement, $50 million awarded. You guys? I was sitting there with my mouth hanging open like a fish. My father had a twin brother who'd been disinherited, just like me. And apparently, this brother had just won a massive lawsuit against the family business. That's when I realized something that made my hands shake. The timing of my parents' will reading wasn't a coincidence. They knew about this lawsuit. They knew about Uncle Robert. And they were scared. But here's the thing they didn't know. Grandma Dorothy had been in contact with Robert. All those years, she'd been secretly helping him, just like she'd been secretly helping me. And now I had his last known address in Seattle, a deed to a multi-million-dollar house, and enough money to fight back against the people who'd thrown me away like garbage. Game on, Mom and Dad. Game freaking on. I spent the entire night in Grandma's house, going through every single document in that box like I was preparing for the most important exam of my life. By morning, I had a plan forming in my head, and let me tell you, it was going to be epic. First things first, I needed to find Uncle Robert. The returned letter from Seattle was my only lead, but hey, I'm a millennial. I know how to use the internet like a weapon. After about 4 hours of deep diving through social media, public records, and good old-fashioned Google stalking, I found him. Robert Blackwood, age 62, living in a modest apartment in Capitol Hill, Seattle. He was a retired teacher who'd spent 30 years working with kids in underserved communities. His Facebook page was full of pictures with his students, volunteer work at soup kitchens, and posts about social justice. This man was literally the opposite of my father in every way that mattered. I found his phone number and just stared at it for like 20 minutes. How do you call someone and say, "Hey, I'm your niece that you've never met, and I just found out you exist"? There's no greeting card for that situation, trust me. Finally, I just dialed. He answered on the third ring with a voice that sounded exactly like my dad's, and I almost hung up. Hello? Hi. Is this Robert Blackwood? Yes. Who's this? This is going to sound crazy, but I'm Madison. Madison Blackwood. I'm Richard's daughter. The silence on the other end was deafening. I could hear him breathing, but he didn't say anything for what felt like forever. Madison, he finally said, and his voice was so gentle, so warm. Dorothy told me about you. She said you were special. I started crying again. Seems like that's all I do anymore. You knew Grandma? Oh, sweetheart. Dorothy was the only one in that family who had any sense. She's been sending me pictures of you and your brother for years. I have your high school graduation photo on my refrigerator. That broke me completely. This man I'd never met had been caring about me from a distance my entire life, while my own parents had been planning to throw me away. Robert, can I call you Robert? I need to ask you something. What happened between you and my dad? Why were you cut out of the family? He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Same thing that's happening to you, I imagine. I didn't fit their mold. I wanted to be a teacher instead of going into the family business. I married a woman they thought was beneath me. She was a waitress. Most beautiful soul you ever met. And the final straw was when I refused to lie for your grandfather in a business deal that would have screwed over a bunch of small investors. So they just cut you off? Completely. Changed the locks on the family business, removed me from the will, told everyone I was dead to them. I was 22, Madison. 22 years old, and my own family threw me away because I had a conscience. The parallel was so obvious it hurt. Different generation, same story, same family, same cruelty. Robert, I need to tell you something. Yesterday, my parents gave their entire $999 million estate to my brother Jake. They told me I'd get nothing. Nothing at all. Jesus Christ, he whispered. History really does repeat itself, doesn't it? But here's the thing. I found out about the lawsuit, the class action settlement. Grandma left me all the information. Now it was his turn to be quiet. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder. You know about that, huh? $50 million, Madison. $50 million that your father and his company owe to the people they screwed over with their illegal business practices. Environmental violations, worker safety issues, tax evasion, the whole 9 yards. And you're one of the plaintiffs? I'm the lead plaintiff. See, after they cut me off, I kept records. Every dirty deal, every corner they cut, every law they bent. I've been building this case for 30 years. My mind was racing. Robert, what if I told you I might be able to help? What if there was a way to make them pay for what they've done to both of us? What are you thinking, kiddo? I'm thinking it's time for a family reunion. And I'm thinking my parents are about to learn that Karma's a bitch, and she's been waiting 40 years to collect. That afternoon, I booked a flight to Seattle. I was going to meet my uncle, and together we were going to plan the most spectacular takedown in Blackwood family history. But first, I had a little visit to make to my parents' house. See, there's something I haven't told you yet. All those years of being dismissed and ignored and treated like I was invisible, I'd been paying attention. I'd been listening, and I knew things about my family's business that they didn't know I knew. Jake might be their golden boy, but I was the one who'd been quietly observing from the shadows. And shadows, as it turns out, are where you learn the most interesting secrets. I drove over to the family mansion in Winnetka. You know, the one that's supposed to go to Jake someday. The same house where I'd spent 18 years feeling like an outsider in my own family. I used my key. Yeah, I still had one, because they'd been too arrogant to think I'd ever have the guts to use it. Mom was in the kitchen, probably planning some charity luncheon where she could show off to her rich friends about how philanthropic she was. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Madison," she said, looking genuinely surprised to see me. "What are you doing here?" "Just wanted to chat, Mom. You know, mother-daughter bonding time." She looked uncomfortable, which was exactly what I wanted. "About yesterday. Your father and I hope you understand that we're just trying to be practical." "Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand that you and Dad are about to lose everything you've ever worked for." Her face went white. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about Uncle Robert. You remember him, right? Dad's twin brother? The one you've been pretending doesn't exist for the past 40 years? She actually stumbled backward and grabbed the counter for support. Where did you? Grandma Dorothy kept excellent records, Mom. And she made sure I'd find them when the time was right. Turns out, the time is right now. Madison, you don't understand the situation. No, Mom, you don't understand the situation. You threw me away thinking I was powerless. But you know what? I'm not powerless. I'm a Blackwood. And apparently, we're really good at holding grudges and getting revenge. I turned to leave, but stopped at the doorway. "Oh, and Mom, you might want to call your lawyer. You're going to need him." The look of pure terror on her face was worth every tear I'd cried in that law office. Next stop, Seattle. Time to meet the family member who actually deserved to be called family. Flying into Seattle felt like stepping into a completely different world. The city was gray and moody, which totally matched my emotional state. But there was something hopeful about it too. Like maybe, just maybe, I was finally going to find where I belonged. Robert picked me up at the airport, and guys, I nearly cried when I saw him. He looked exactly like my dad, but softer somehow. Where my father was always stern and intimidating, Robert had these laugh lines around his eyes, and this gentle way of moving through the world. He was wearing a worn leather jacket and jeans. "When's the last time you saw my dad in anything but a 3-piece suit?" "Madison," he said, and just wrapped me in the biggest hug. "You look just like your grandmother when she was your age." We drove through the city in his beat-up Honda Civic, another thing that would give my parents a heart attack, and he pointed out all his favorite spots. The coffee shop where he graded papers for 30 years, the community center where he still volunteers, the bookstore where he'd spent countless hours reading to kids during story time. "I want you to meet someone," he said, as we pulled up to a small house in a neighborhood that was clearly gentrifying. "I hope you don't mind, but I told Emma about you, and she's been dying to meet you." Emma turned out to be his wife, the waitress my family had deemed beneath him. She was 70 now, with silver hair and the warmest smile I'd ever seen. She also made the best chocolate chip cookies in the history of the universe, which she pressed into my hands the second I walked through the door. "Your grandmother talked about you all the time," Emma said, settling us around their kitchen table. "She was so proud of your artwork. She showed us pictures of that mural you painted for the children's hospital." I was shocked. "She showed you my work?" "Honey, she carried pictures of your art in her purse. She'd show them to anyone who would look. She said you had a gift for making people feel hope." That's when I lost it completely. Here were these people who'd been celebrating my achievements from thousands of miles away, while my own parents had been treating my career like an embarrassing phase I'd grow out of. Robert sat across from me, and his expression grew serious. "Madison, I need you to understand something." What I'm about to share with you about your parents and the family business, it's not pretty. Are you sure you want to know? I'm sure. I need to know everything. For the next 3 hours, Robert laid out a story that made my blood boil. My family's company, Blackwood Industries, had been cutting corners and breaking laws for decades. They'd been dumping chemicals into waterways, ignoring safety regulations that led to worker injuries, and using intimidation tactics to silence anyone who tried to speak up. The lawsuit that just settled, that's only the beginning, Robert explained. There are criminal investigations pending. Your father and the board of directors are looking at serious jail time if the feds can prove willful negligence. Is that why they suddenly decided to give everything to Jake? So if Dad goes to prison, the money's protected? Exactly. They think if they transfer everything to Jake now, it'll be safe from seizure. But here's what they don't know. I've been working with the FBI for 2 years. I've given them everything I have on the company's illegal activities. Emma leaned forward. Your uncle risked everything to do the right thing. He could have just taken the settlement money and walked away, but he wanted to make sure justice was done. The $50 million from the settlement, that's going to the victims and their families. I'm not keeping a dime of it, Robert said. But the criminal case, that's going to destroy them completely. I sat there, trying to process everything. My parents weren't just cruel, they were criminals, and they'd been using their wealth and influence to hurt innocent people for years. Robert, I want to help. I want to make sure they pay for what they've done. Not just to us, but to everyone they've hurt. He studied my face carefully. This isn't going to be easy, Madison. They're going to fight back, and they're going to fight dirty. Are you prepared for that? They already threw me away. What else can they do to me? They can try to destroy your reputation, your career, your relationships. They can make your life hell in ways you can't even imagine. Then it's a good thing I learned how to fight back from the best teacher in the world. Who's that? Grandma Dorothy. She spent 40 years planning this moment, Robert. She knew this day would come, and she made sure I'd have everything I needed to take them down. That night, Emma made us dinner. Real comfort food, not the pretentious cuisine my parents always served at their dinner parties. We sat around their table, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was part of a real family. People who cared about each other, who supported each other, who didn't measure love in dollar signs. I have an idea, I said over Emma's amazing pot roast. What if we beat them at their own game? What if we use their greed and their fear against them? What are you thinking? Robert asked. I'm thinking it's time to remind them that they taught me everything I know about being ruthless. They just never thought I'd use it against them. I pulled out my phone and showed them a picture I'd taken of a document in my father's home office, a document I'd photographed years ago when I was still trying to understand why my parents were always so stressed about money despite being millionaires. This is a list of offshore accounts where they've been hiding money from the IRS. I found it when I was in high school and didn't understand what it meant. Now I do. Robert's eyes widened. Madison, this is evidence of tax evasion. I know. And I have more. Years of overheard conversations, documents I've seen, meetings I've sat through where they thought I wasn't paying attention. I've been the invisible daughter for so long, they forgot I had eyes and ears. Emma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Your grandmother would be so proud of you. She's the one who taught me that sometimes the best revenge is just giving people exactly what they deserve. The next morning, I called my parents from Robert's kitchen. My mom answered on the first ring. Madison, sweetheart, I'm so glad you called. Your father and I have been thinking, and maybe we were a little hasty yesterday. Save it, Mom. I'm not calling to reconcile. I'm calling to let you know that I've hired a lawyer, and I'm coming home to Chicago tomorrow. A lawyer? Madison, what are you... I'm contesting the will, and I'm also filing a formal complaint with the FBI about Blackwood Industries' business practices. I have documentation going back 15 years. The silence on the other end was deafening. You wouldn't dare, she finally whispered. Try me. You threw me away, Mom. You told me I was worthless and that I'd never amount to anything. But you know what? I learned from the best. I learned from a family of fighters who don't back down when someone tries to destroy them. Madison, you don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. I'm doing exactly what you taught me to do. I'm putting family first. It's just that now I know who my real family is. I hung up and looked at Robert and Emma, who were staring at me with amazement. Well, Robert said, looks like the Blackwood family war is about to begin. Good, I said, because I've been preparing for this fight my whole life. Flying back to Chicago felt like returning to enemy territory. But this time I wasn't the scared, heartbroken daughter who'd left 3 days ago. I was armed with information, backed by family who actually cared about me. and ready to rain down hell on the people who'd betrayed me. I'd spent my last night in Seattle with Robert and Emma, planning our strategy like we were generals preparing for battle. Robert had contacts at the FBI. Emma had connections in the media through her work with victims' rights organizations, and I had inside knowledge of my parents' operation that they never knew I possessed. The plan was simple, but brutal. Hit them from every angle at once. Legal, financial, and social. Make it impossible for them to fight back on all fronts simultaneously. I landed at O'Hare at 8 a.m. and went straight to the law office of Patricia Hendricks, a lawyer Robert had recommended. She was a shark, the kind of attorney who made other lawyers nervous. Her office was in one of those intimidating downtown skyscrapers, and she had the kind of reputation that made my parents' fancy lawyer look like a public defender. "Ms. Blackwood," she said, looking over the documents I'd brought, "this is quite a case you're bringing me. Are you absolutely certain you want to go to war with your family? They declared war on me first. I'm just responding in kind." Patricia smiled, the kind of smile that probably made opposing counsel break out in cold sweats. "Then let's destroy them properly." She filed 3 separate lawsuits that morning. The first was contesting my parents' will on grounds of undue influence, basically arguing that they'd manipulated Jake into supporting their decision to cut me out. The second was a civil suit against Blackwood Industries for fraud and racketeering. The third was the nuclear option, a wrongful termination suit, claiming that I'd been constructively dismissed from my position as an unpaid consultant to the family business. "That last one is interesting," Patricia explained. "You've been attending family business meetings for years, providing marketing and design advice. You were never officially paid, but you were essentially an employee. We're going to argue that cutting you out of the will was retaliation for your intention to expose their illegal activities. While Patricia was filing paperwork, I was implementing phase 2 of the plan. I drove straight to the offices of the Chicago Tribune, where I had a meeting with investigative journalist Marcus Chen. Robert had connected us. Marcus had been following the Blackwood Industries story for months, waiting for someone with inside information to come forward. "Madison, what you're telling me is explosive," Marcus said, recording our conversation. "But I need proof. I can't just take your word for it." That's when I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos I'd been taking for years. Pictures of documents, recordings of phone conversations, screenshots of emails I'd seen on my father's computer. I'd been documenting their crimes without even realizing it. "Holy shit," Marcus whispered, scrolling through the evidence. "This is Pulitzer Prize material. When can I publish? Give me 48 hours. I want to make sure they know it's coming from me." Phase 3 was the most personal. I drove to Jake's house in Evanston, the perfect suburban mansion where he lived with his perfect wife and perfect kids. I needed to give my brother one chance to do the right thing, even though I knew he wouldn't take it. Sarah answered the door, and the look on her face when she saw me was priceless. Pure panic. "Madison, what are you doing here?" "I need to talk to Jake. Family business." Jake appeared behind her, and I could see the guilt written all over his face. He knew what they'd done was wrong, but he was too greedy to care. "Madison, look, about the will." "Save it, Jake. I'm not here to beg. I'm here to give you a choice." I sat down in their pristine living room, the one that probably cost more than most people's cars, and laid out the situation for them. "In about 6 hours, Dad's going to be arrested on federal charges. The FBI has been building a case against Blackwood Industries for 2 years, and they have enough evidence to put him away for 20 years. Jake's face went white. "That's not possible. Dad would never—" "Dad's been committing crimes for decades, Jake. And now, there's going to be a criminal investigation into every aspect of the company, including all financial transfers made in the past year." Sarah grabbed Jake's arm. "What does that mean?" "It means that $999 million inheritance you just received, it's going to be frozen as soon as the feds determine it was transferred to avoid asset seizure. You're going to lose everything, and you're probably going to be charged as an accessory." "Unless what?" Jake asked, because he could see where this was going. "Unless you do the right thing. You give me half the inheritance, not as a gift, but as what I was always entitled to. You cooperate with the FBI investigation, and you publicly acknowledge that what Mom and Dad did was wrong." Jake and Sarah looked at each other, and I could see them calculating, trying to figure out if I was bluffing, if there was a way to keep their windfall without consequences. "And if we don't?" Jake asked. "Then you go down with them. And trust me, Jake, I have enough evidence to make sure you do." I stood up to leave, but turned back at the door. "You have until tonight to decide. After that, you're on your own." The drive back to my apartment was surreal. In less than 12 hours, I'd gone from being a disinherited daughter to being the person who was about to destroy one of Chicago's most powerful families. It should have felt overwhelming, but instead it felt like the most natural thing in the world. That's when my phone rang. It was my mother. "Madison, sweetheart, we need to talk. Your father and I have been discussing the situation, and we think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding, Mom. You made your position very clear. We were thinking maybe we could find a way to include you in the estate after all. Perhaps a trust fund, or it's too late for that. Madison, please. You're our daughter. Surely we can work something out as a family." I pulled over to the side of the road because I was shaking with rage. "As a family? You mean the family that threw me away? The family that told me I was worthless? The family that gave everything to Jake while I got nothing? We were just trying to teach you responsibility." "No, Mom. You were trying to control me. You were trying to force me to become someone I'm not. And when I refused to play your game, you decided to destroy me. Madison, you don't understand the consequences of what you're doing. I understand perfectly. I'm giving you exactly what you gave me. Nothing." I hung up and sat in my car for a few minutes, trying to process everything that was happening. My phone kept ringing. First my dad, then Jake, then my mom again. I ignored them all. At 6 p.m., I got a text from Patricia. "FBI made the arrests. Your father and 2 board members are in custody. It's done." At 6:30, I got a call from Marcus. "Story goes live in the morning. Front page. You ready for this?" At 7 p.m., Jake called. "Madison, I'll do it. I'll give you half the inheritance. Just, please don't let them destroy Sarah and the kids." "Too late, Jake. You made your choice when you took that money knowing I deserved half of it." "Madison, please. You want to protect your family? Then you should have thought about that before you helped mine destroy me." The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing with notifications. The Chicago Tribune story was viral. The Blackwood scandal was trending on Twitter. Every news outlet in the city was picking up the story. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had the power. The next few weeks were absolutely insane. I'm talking about a complete media circus that made the Kardashians look boring. My parents went from being Chicago's power couple to being the most hated people in the city practically overnight. The FBI had done their homework. When they arrested my father, they simultaneously raided the Blackwood Industries offices, froze all their accounts, and issued warrants for 3 other executives. The local news showed my dad doing the perp walk in handcuffs, and I'm not going to lie, it was satisfying as hell. But the real kicker was when the victims started coming forward. The Chicago Tribune ran a whole series called The Blackwood Files, and every day brought new stories of people who'd been hurt by my family's company. Factory workers who'd developed cancer from chemical exposure, families whose water had been contaminated, small business owners who'd been driven into bankruptcy by my father's predatory practices. I was staying at Grandma's house, my house now, and every morning I'd wake up to find reporters camped outside. They all wanted the same story, the disinherited daughter who brought down her own family. "How does it feel to be responsible for your father's arrest?" one reporter shouted at me. "I'm not responsible for my father's crimes," I shouted back. "I'm only responsible for making sure he finally paid for them." The best part? Jake was starting to crack under the pressure. The feds had frozen the inheritance money, just like I'd predicted, and suddenly he was looking at losing his house, his kids' private school tuition, and his country club membership. Sarah was having full-scale panic attacks, and the perfect family facade was crumbling faster than a house of cards. He called me every single day, begging me to help him. "Madison, please. The FBI wants to know about conversations I had with Dad about the business. If I tell them the truth, they'll charge me as an accessory. If I lie, they'll charge me with perjury." "Sounds like you're screwed either way, Jake. Come on. You got what you wanted. Dad's in jail, the company's destroyed, Mom's having a nervous breakdown. Isn't that enough? Is it enough? Let me think about that. You spent 28 years watching our parents treat me like garbage, and you never once stood up for me. You took $9 million that should have been split between us, and you didn't even feel guilty about it. You enabled every single thing they did to me. I was just trying to protect my family. By destroying yours? Yeah, that worked out great for you. But here's the thing that really got to me. My mother. She'd gone completely off the deep end. Patricia told me that Mom had hired 3 different law firms to try to find a way to pin everything on me. She was actually trying to claim that I'd manipulated Grandma Dorothy into leaving me the house and money. "Your mother is alleging that you took advantage of an elderly woman with dementia," Patricia explained during one of our meetings. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. Grandma was sharper than a tack until the day she died. She was playing chess with the retirement home volunteers and winning every game. I know. We have medical records proving she was completely competent when she made those transfers. But your mother is desperate. Desperate was right. Mom had even tried to get the neighbors to sign statements saying I was a troubled child who'd always been manipulative. Fortunately, most of them remembered me as the quiet kid who helped Mrs. Patterson with her groceries and walked the Johnsons' dog when they were out of town. The real shocker came 3 weeks after Dad's arrest. I was at the house, going through more of Grandma's things, when I found another box hidden in the basement. This one contained letters, dozens of them, dating back 40 years. They were from Uncle Robert to Grandma Dorothy. Letters he'd written every month for 4 decades, updating her on his life, asking about the family, begging her to convince my father to reconcile. Some of them made me cry. Dear Dorothy, I saw Richard's picture in the business section of the Chicago Tribune today. He looks successful but not happy. I wonder if he ever thinks about me, if he ever regrets what happened between us. I miss him every day. Another one, from 10 years ago. Dorothy, I heard Madison got into art school. I'm so proud of her, even though I've never met her. Will you tell her that her uncle is rooting for her? Maybe someday. But the most devastating letter was from just 2 years ago. Dorothy, I've been diagnosed with heart problems. The doctors say I have a few years left if I'm lucky. I don't want to die without seeing my brother again, without meeting my niece and nephew. Is there any chance? Grandma had kept every single letter, and at the bottom of the box was a draft of a letter she'd never sent to my father. Richard, your brother is sick. He's been writing to me for 40 years, asking about you, hoping for reconciliation. You're both getting old, and time is running out. Don't let pride destroy the last chance you have to be brothers again. I called Robert immediately, crying so hard I could barely speak. You wrote to Grandma for 40 years? Every month, he said quietly. She was the only connection I had to the family. She'd send me pictures, tell me stories about you kids. It kept me sane. Robert, I found a letter. Grandma tried to convince Dad to reconcile with you when you got sick. She did? What did he say? She never sent it. There's a note attached saying Richard won't listen. He's too stubborn and too proud. The silence on the other end broke my heart. Robert, are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart. I made peace with Richard's choice a long time ago, but that night, I couldn't stop thinking about those letters, about 40 years of missed birthdays, holidays, family moments, about 2 brothers who'd let pride and stubbornness steal 4 decades from them. That's when I decided to do something that was either incredibly stupid or incredibly brave. I drove to the federal detention center where my father was being held awaiting trial. Visiting a federal prisoner is no joke. Background checks, metal detectors, searches, the whole 9 yards. But I had something to say to him, and it couldn't wait. They brought him into the visiting room wearing an orange jumpsuit that made him look older and smaller than I'd ever seen him. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Madison, he said, sitting down across from me. I didn't expect you to come. Neither did I. We stared at each other for a few minutes. He looked exhausted, defeated, like the fight had gone out of him completely. Your Uncle Robert, I said finally. He wrote to Grandma every month for 40 years. Every month, Dad. He never stopped trying to connect with you. My father's face crumpled. Actually crumpled. She never told me. She tried to. 2 years ago when he got sick, she tried to convince you to reach out to him. But you were too proud. I thought he hated me. I thought he wanted nothing to do with the family. He never stopped loving you. Even after everything you did to him. Even after you destroyed his life. He kept hoping you'd remember that he was your brother. My father put his head in his hands. I ruined everything, didn't I? Yeah, Dad. You did. Madison, I know I can't fix what I've done to you, but you're right. You can't. But you can still fix what you did to Robert. You can still be the brother he's been waiting for. I stood up to leave, but turned back one more time. He's flying in for your sentencing hearing next week. He wants to be there for you, even after everything. That's what real family does, Dad. They show up. Walking out of that prison, I felt something I hadn't expected. Closure. Not forgiveness. I wasn't ready for that yet. But closure. Like maybe, just maybe, something good could come out of all this destruction. The war was almost over, but the biggest surprise was still coming. The sentencing hearing was like something out of a legal drama, except this was my real life playing out in front of a packed courtroom. Every major news outlet in Chicago was there, plus reporters from CNN and Fox News. The Blackwood family scandal had gone national. I sat in the front row next to Robert and Emma. watching my father stand before the judge in his prison uniform. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the 2 months since his arrest. My mother was across the aisle, flanked by her lawyers, refusing to even look in our direction. The judge was not messing around. "Mr. Blackwood, your company's actions resulted in serious environmental damage and put hundreds of workers at risk. The evidence shows a pattern of willful negligence and criminal disregard for public safety spanning decades. Dad was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. 12 years. He'd be almost 75 when he got out, if he got out at all. But here's the part that nobody saw coming. As they were leading him away in handcuffs, he stopped and looked directly at Robert. "Bobby," he said, using the childhood nickname I'd never heard before. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." Robert stood up, tears streaming down his face. "I forgive you, Richie. I've always forgiven you." They looked at each other for a long moment. Two old men who'd wasted 40 years being angry instead of being brothers. Then the guards led my father away, and Robert collapsed into his seat sobbing. But the drama wasn't over. As we were leaving the courthouse, my mother cornered me in the parking garage. "Are you happy now?" she hissed. "You've destroyed everything. Your father's life is over. The company is bankrupt. Jake's family is ruined. Was your revenge worth it?" "This isn't about revenge, Mom. This is about justice." "Justice? You call destroying your own family justice?" That's when I lost it. Really lost it. "I didn't destroy this family. You did. You and Dad created this mess with 40 years of lies and crimes and cruelty. You threw me away like garbage, and now you're mad that the garbage fought back? We were trying to teach you. You were trying to control me. And when you couldn't control me, you decided to punish me. Well, congratulations, Mom. You taught me everything I needed to know about how to fight dirty." I started to walk away, but she grabbed my arm. "Madison, please. I know we made mistakes, but we're still family. Surely there's some way to fix this." I looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd given birth to me but had never really been my mother. This woman who'd spent 28 years making me feel like I wasn't good enough, wasn't worthy, wasn't deserving of love. "You want to fix this? Then start by admitting what you did was wrong. Admit that you treated me like shit for my entire life. Admit that you stole my inheritance and gave it to Jake because you never valued me as much as you valued him." She opened her mouth to argue, but then stopped. For the first time in my life, I saw something that might have been shame in her eyes. We always loved you, Madison. We just didn't know how to show it. No, Mom. You loved the idea of me. You loved the version of me that existed in your head. The one who would go to business school and marry some rich guy and give you grandchildren and never question anything you did. You never loved the real me. That's not true. It is true. And you know what the really sad part is? I spent my whole life trying to earn your love, trying to be good enough, smart enough, successful enough to deserve your approval. But I finally realized that it was never about me. It was about you. You're incapable of loving anyone who doesn't fit into your perfect little world. I pulled my arm free and started walking toward my car. "Madison, wait. No, Mom. I'm done waiting. I'm done hoping. I'm done trying to be the daughter you wanted instead of being the woman I am." That night, I had dinner with Robert and Emma at their hotel. They were flying back to Seattle the next morning, but Robert had something he wanted to discuss with me first. "Madison, I've been thinking about the settlement money, the $50 million from the lawsuit. You said you were giving it all to the victims. I am, but I want you to help me distribute it. I want you to be involved in deciding how to help the people your father's company hurt." I was stunned. "Robert, I don't know anything about. You know everything about art therapy, about community programs, about making people feel hope. These victims don't just need money, Madison. They need healing. They need someone who understands what it feels like to be thrown away and forgotten. You want me to move to Seattle? I want you to consider it. Emma and I aren't getting any younger, and frankly, we could use some help. Plus, there's a great art scene in Seattle. You could build something amazing there." I thought about it as I drove home to Grandma's house. My house. The house that was worth $2.3 million. Sitting in a neighborhood where I'd never felt like I belonged. When I got home, there was a car in my driveway. Jake's car. He was sitting on the front steps, looking like he'd been there for hours. His perfect hair was messy, his expensive suit was wrinkled, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Madison, we need to talk. I thought we'd said everything we needed to say. Sarah left me." I stopped walking. "What?" "She took the kids and moved in with her parents. She said she can't handle the stress of being associated with the family scandal."
"The neighbors won't talk to us. The kids are getting bullied at school. and she's had enough. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I'm sorry, Jake. That sucks. The thing is, she was right. About everything. We enabled Dad's behavior for years because it benefited us. We knew the company was cutting corners. We knew there were safety issues, but we didn't care because the money kept rolling in. He stood up and faced me. You were right to expose us.
You were right to fight back, and I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry for everything we put you through. Jake, I've been cooperating with the FBI. I've told them everything I know about Dad's operations, about the offshore accounts, about the cover-ups. I'm probably going to be charged as an accessory, but I can't keep lying anymore. This was not the conversation I'd expected to have. What do you want from me, Jake? I want to try to be your brother. The brother I should have been all along. I looked at him standing there, broken and humble and finally human. And I realized something that surprised me. I still loved him. Despite everything, despite the years of neglect and favoritism and betrayal, he was still my brother. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to salvage something from the wreckage of our family. Okay, I said, but we do this my way. No more lies, no more secrets, no more covering for each other's mistakes. If we're going to be family, we're going to be real family. Deal, he said. And Madison, thank you for giving me a chance to be better. As I unlocked the front door and let my brother into Grandma's house for the first time since she'd died, I realized that maybe this story wasn't just about revenge after all. Maybe it was about finding out who your real family is. And sometimes, they're not the people you expect. 6 months later, I'm sitting in a coffee shop in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, watching the rain streak down the windows while I work on plans for the Blackwood Victims Relief Foundation. Yeah, you heard that right. We named it after the family that caused all the damage in the first place. Robert thought it was poetic justice. The foundation has been incredible to work with. We've helped 57 families so far, paying for medical treatments, funding education for kids whose parents were injured, setting up art therapy programs for communities affected by environmental damage. It turns out that healing people is way more satisfying than destroying them. Although I'm not going to lie, the destroying part felt pretty good at the time. I moved to Seattle 3 months ago, sold Grandma's house for $2, $4 million, even more than she thought it was worth, and bought a cute little craftsman bungalow 15 minutes from Robert and Emma. I've got a studio in the converted garage where I work on my art, and for the first time in my life, I'm actually making money doing what I love. The weirdest part? Jake moved out here too. After Sarah divorced him, and he served 6 months in minimum security prison for his role in the cover-up, he decided he needed a fresh start. He's working for the foundation now, doing administrative stuff and learning how to be a decent human being. It's weird having a relationship with my brother for the first time ever, but it's also kind of amazing. He's really trying, Emma told me last week over dinner. Robert says he reminds him of your father before the money and power corrupted him. Think he'll stick with it? I asked. I think losing his family scared him straight. Sometimes people need to lose everything before they can figure out what really matters. My mother, on the other hand, is still living in denial. She moved to Florida after the house got seized by the government, and she spends her time playing tennis at some retirement community and telling everyone that her children turned against the family. She sends me birthday cards with generic messages like she doesn't even know who I am, which, honestly, she probably doesn't. My father calls me from prison sometimes. Short conversations where he asks about Robert and tells me he's proud of what I'm doing with the foundation. It's weird and awkward, and I'm not sure I'll ever forgive him completely, but at least he's trying to acknowledge the damage he caused. The best part of this whole crazy story is my relationship with Robert and Emma. They've become the parents I always needed, the ones who support my dreams, celebrate my successes, and love me exactly as I am. We have dinner together every Sunday, and Robert is teaching me how to play chess, while Emma teaches me how to make her famous chocolate chip cookies. You know, Robert said last Sunday, after I'd finally beaten him at chess for the first time, Dorothy would be so proud of how you've handled all this. You think so? I know so. She always said you had the strongest spirit of anyone in the family. She knew you'd find a way to turn all that pain into something beautiful. And you know what? I think she was right. The foundation is growing every month. We're expanding into other states, helping victims of corporate negligence nationwide. I'm using my art background to create healing spaces and therapeutic programs. Jake is actually good at the administrative side, and he's passionate about making amends for our family's crimes. But here's the thing that really gets me. I'm happy. Like genuinely, consistently happy for the first time in my life. I wake up every morning excited about the work I'm doing, surrounded by people who care about me, living a life that feels authentic and meaningful. A year ago, I was the forgotten daughter who got nothing. Now I realize I got everything that mattered. I got to discover who I really am when everything else was stripped away. I got to build my own family with people who choose to love me every day. I got to turn a legacy of cruelty and greed into something that actually helps people. So to anyone out there who's watching this and feeling like they're not valued, like they're not good enough, like their family doesn't see their worth, let me tell you something. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. But that doesn't mean you're worthless. It means they can't see your value. The real family, the people who will stand by you and fight for you and celebrate you, they're out there. Sometimes they're blood relatives who've been waiting for the chance to love you. Sometimes they're people you haven't met yet. But they exist. And when you find them, you'll understand that being thrown away by the wrong people is actually a gift. It frees you up to be found by the right ones. My grandmother Dorothy left me way more than money and property. She left me the knowledge that I was worth fighting for, even when everyone else had given up on me. She left me the strength to stand up for myself and for other people who needed someone in their corner. Most importantly, she left me the understanding that family isn't about blood or money or meeting other people's expectations. Family is about showing up. It's about choosing each other every day. It's about building something beautiful together, even when the world tries to tear you down. And you know what's really crazy? The inheritance I thought I'd lost was never really mine to begin with. The real inheritance, the love, the strength, the determination to fight for what's right, that was always mine. My parents couldn't take it away from me because they never had the power to give it to me in the first place. So yeah, they told me I'd get nothing at that will reading. And they were wrong. I got everything. I just had to fight for it first. If you've been following this whole crazy story, thank you for taking this journey with me. Please hit that like button if this story moved you, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I love hearing from people all over the world who've connected with this experience. And definitely follow this channel because life is full of unexpected plot twists, and you never know what story is going to change your perspective on everything. The Blackwood family war is over, but the Blackwood family legacy, that's just beginning. And this time, we're building something worth being proud of. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well, but the best justice, that's helping other people live well too.